Welcome to another edition of Saturday Sit Down. This week we go all the way to the East Coast where we find Cam Braze in Fredericton, New Brunswick. And Cam, I guess first off, how is life treating you these days? How has summer been?
Yeah, summer's been good. Obviously, it's a different year in 2020 with COVID and everything that that pandemic has done to the world. But summer was pretty good. I beefed up the golf game quite a bit. I was on the course a lot, which was fun. Enjoyed the good weather. But yeah, summer flew by pretty quick. We're on to the fall now, so probably got a couple more rounds in me. But kind of on to the real world stuff now.
What's the handicap looking like these days?
Yeah, it's definitely gotten better. I think I'm playing at 8.5 right now. So low of 74 this year, which was my career best. But I mean, I've also sprayed some into the 90s, so it's a little inconsistent. But yeah, I'm playing at about an 8.5.
Hey, a 90s round, that's a good round for me. So if we ever golf together, we won't be golfing for money, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Talk about your life right now. What are you up to, and how is you're of course a BC guy, a good Vancouver Island guy. So what's it like been living on the other coast? I know you've been there for quite some time, but how is life out there right now?
Yeah, life is good. Obviously, I went to school here for 5 years, and like many stories, went out here and found a girl, and so I'm still around on the East Coast. No, it's good. I still have some friends in town that I played with at UNB, and obviously have some family out here with my girl, and it's kind of unfortunate. I've really missed home this summer and wanted to head home, but currently the East Coast, they've done probably a good job being extra precautionary. They just opened, I think a month ago, the Atlantic bubble. So it used to be just New Brunswick was locked down, but they opened it up to PEI and Nova Scotia. But currently, I can go home to BC, but coming back here, I'd have to quarantine for 2 weeks. So it just doesn't make sense right now. But as soon as that opens up, I'd really like to get home and see my family. It's been a while, and my friends. So I'm still hoping that'll happen sometime soon. But just kind of being patient and yeah, just enjoying life.
Well, I want to roll back the clock and talk about your time with the Lethbridge Hurricanes and everything that you've done since graduating from the WHL. You're a Shawnigan Lake guy on Vancouver Island. You and I are the same age. So when we were growing up, the Victoria Royals didn't exist. So when you were a young player, what did the WHL mean to you? What did you know about the Western Hockey League when you were kind of approaching your WHL Bantam draft year?
Yeah, to be honest, I'd never seen a WHL game or anything before I played in my first one. Obviously, I knew about the Bantam draft, and that was an important year. It was an interesting year for myself. So the organization that I was part of growing up was called Couch and Valley. They have the junior A team in town in the BCHL, the Couch and Valley Capitals. So essentially, the Couch and Valley that had three different minor hockey organizations that comprised it. So there was Kerry Park Islanders, and that's kind of the area that I was from, Shawnigan Lake, Mill Bay area, and then Duncan, and then Fuller Lake, which would be Ladysmith and Chemainus. So growing up, obviously in the novice and stuff, I played for Kerry Park, and then once you moved on to Adam, AAA hockey, it was Couch and Valley. And we were pretty competitive. Obviously, there's a couple usually better teams, whether it was Racket Club or Nanaimo, some of the bigger cities, but we did very well. And then going into my draft year, my second year Bantam, or sorry, first year Bantam, Kerry Park decided to split from Couch and Valley, so they wanted to run things on their own. So essentially, instead of playing at a AAA level, they moved down to a AA level. So I started out, I think I played 2 exhibition games at the Bantam AA level, but ultimately determined that it was probably better for my development if I maybe played up a level. So I ended up playing midget AA my draft year. and was fortunate enough to get drafted by Lethbridge. At the time, it was a little bit of a surprise. I hadn't really talked to Lethbridge before the draft. I talked to a couple other, quite a few teams, but Lethbridge really wasn't one of them. And then I remember just I don't know, just because the Royals weren't in Victoria at the time, it wasn't a super big thing or on the radar. Like I remember it was I think it was like a Tuesday for school. I stayed home for the morning, watched the WHL draft, got drafted by Lethbridge in the third round, took some calls, and then went back to school. And I think like 3 people at my school congratulated me or even knew it was going on. So yeah, it was different, to be honest with you. And I'm kind of going into a long story here, but I always thought I was going to be a junior A NCAA guy. I think, like you said, without having the Royals there, not seeing WHL, me and my dad growing up, we used to go to the Cowichan Valley Capitals, the junior A team in town. We'd watch them growing up. So I always figured, okay, well, this is kind of play locally and then hopefully do NCAA. And then after getting drafted, for whatever reason, I played midget AAA the following year in Victoria for a South Island team. And it just seemed to work out that every single time a Lethbridge scout came to our games, I played really well. And then whenever the Cowichan scouts came, I played like okay, I guess. So I ended up going to Cowichan's. I'd already signed up for their spring camp, and they told me that they didn't really see a future for me as a 16-year-old, and maybe try out junior B and try again at 17. But at that point, I just signed with Lethbridge, and one of the big things for me was that they essentially told me like that I was going to be a part of the group going forward, and that I would play a certain amount of games. So yeah, after looking it over, I thought it probably wasn't what I thought growing up that I would go junior A, but playing in the WHL and the CHL, the best development league in the world, at 16, it was just an opportunity I couldn't pass up.
Yeah, let's talk about that first year, because what a first year in the WHL. Your 16-year-old year, of course, the year that you guys would go on to the WHL final. What do you remember from the early part of that year and the build toward the playoffs? And we'll touch on the playoffs maybe in a few minutes.
Yeah, it was incredible. Obviously, making a team at 16 was great. At that time, one of the big things that helped me definitely was our coaching staff, Michael Dick and Maddie Kabiema. They put a lot of faith in me. That entire year, as a 16-year-old, it's not common. I played 71 to 72 games, and the only game I didn't play, I was hurt. So I wasn't a healthy scratch my entire 16-year-old year, which gave me a lot of confidence. I mean, I was playing a little bit of third line, but mostly fourth line minutes. But we had such a good team, so I was just happy to be a part of it. We kind of had a tough start in the beginning of the year. We weren't like the hottest team, and then I know we made that a pretty big trade, getting Colton Sevier, Nick Hodson from Portland. That really solidified our top 6. And we kind of went on a run after that. We definitely had some surprises on that team. Obviously, Lucas Spiza, I think he was the 3rd last pick in the Euro draft, came to us, was unbelievable. Was a first-round pick that year. Juha Metsola, another pick in that Euro draft, turned out to be just an unbelievable goalie. So honestly, it was such an enjoyable year. We had a great group of guys on the team that were really welcoming. I lived with Zach Boychuk my first year. So he was kind of one of the popular guys on the team. Obviously, he'd had success at the international level, and he brought me around a lot of the older guys that made me feel comfortable. I was in a carpool with him and Carter Banks and Ben Wright and Jesse Craig, so it was really easy to adapt. Obviously, the other rookies on the team got along with really, really well, which helped. But honestly, I just loved being a part of that team, playing a role. I think sitting back, watching like Mitch Fadden and Zach Boychuk, and just some of the stuff that Dwight King and some of the stuff that those guys would do at 16. I was on the bench a lot, but I just got to witness just great hockey.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about all those names, and so many of them prominent even still in the hockey world. You get to the playoffs, and did it seem from the get-go that you guys had something special brewing and felt like you guys had the group to maybe go on a deep run?
Yeah, I honestly thought our team was really good. I think at 16, I was probably a little bit naive. I don't think I knew how hard it would be, but I knew we had a good team. But I mean, we played against some really good teams. Like, I'll throw out some more games out there. So we played against Brandon in the first round, beat them in 6. But if you look at like who the players at their third line at that time was Matt Calvert, Braden Shen, and Scott Glennie. So like, I mean, that's
bad.
a pretty that's a pretty deep team. Obviously, the Glennie and Shen were 16 at the time, but very good players. So no, I think we had a really good mix of some veteran guys, some older guys that kind of knew the way, but also we had a ton of skill, like I mentioned, with Boych and Fads and Sevier, and then some really good role players and skilled guys in Dwight King and Carter Banks, and obviously great leadership in Ben Wright. So going into the playoffs, I felt confident. Obviously, I think we rolled through the first 2 rounds pretty easily against Brandon and Kootenay, and then it was a big test against, I want to say we were either the 2 or the 3 seed, and then we were up against Calgary in the third round, and I thought that would probably be our toughest test. I actually ended up getting strep throat, so I did miss a lot of that series. And go figure, that was one of the series that Austin Fighton came in as a call up and then scored that overtime winner. But Calgary, I thought, was going to be our toughest match, and then we ended up sweeping them, which was amazing. And then obviously it didn't go our way against Spokane in the finals. They were a good team, but yeah, I'm sure we'll probably touch on it here, but just the way the city got behind the team there, it was something that I'd never really seen before. Whether it was businesses with signs, people had like newspaper clippings all over their house. It was the hottest ticket in town. There was probably 2 or 3 rows deep on the concourse of people. I don't know the full numbers. Obviously, I think at that time the NMAX Center was like 5,200 people, but I would say there was probably jam-packed close to 6,000 people at every game, and it was loud and everyone was into it. It was such an enjoyable time.
Yeah, I've been a part of 2 Eastern Conference runs here in Lethbridge, and at that time, it's exactly like what you were saying. The buses had the signs. I can only imagine the next level of going to the WHL final and the atmosphere in the NMAX Center. One of the things that people to this day still talk about is Juha Metsälä, part of that team, of course, the goaltender, and the Juha chants. What do you remember about that and the crowds at the NMAX Center, which can get to be pretty boisterous?
Yeah, no, I obviously remember the Juha chant. It was kind of like the Atlanta Brave chant with the whole crowd going forward like that. I remember Mitch Versteeg, Chris Versteeg's younger brother. He played on our team that year, and then their younger brother, Bryce Versteeg. Tim and Ryan O'Donnell, they were pretty boisterous. But I remember against Calgary when we were up 3-0 and we were at the home and looked like we were going to sweep them. He's going up and down the Calgary section of their fans with the broom going by, sweeping by. Don't mind me. So, but yeah, it was great. Like winning the Eastern Conference title at home was fantastic. Obviously, it was heartbreaking in the finals to lose at home. Again, at 16, I don't think I really took it in or appreciated it enough. Obviously, like I cared and I wanted to win, but when you have success your first year, you're like, oh, this will be a kind of an everyday thing or every year thing. And we did have success the next year, but then obviously there was a couple tough years in Lethbridge after that. So yeah, it would have been really cool to win the league. I mean, Spokane ended up winning going on to win the Mem Cup, and I mean, you never know if we made it, if we would have won it, but definitely that's a point in my career that you kind of wish you could go back and try to do things differently. But again, at the time I was playing 4th line, and it's not like I was going to make a massive difference in the series, but obviously you'd like to go back and hopefully have another crack at it. So
you would, of course, play a ton of games with the Lethbridge Hurricanes, 320 regular season games with the Hurricanes. Had you finished your career with the Canes, you would have set the all-time record of games played. Your final year, you're the captain. I guess first off, touch on what it meant to be the captain of the Lethbridge Hurricanes and what that honor bestowed upon you.
Yeah, it was a tremendous honor. Obviously, starting as a homegrown Hurricane drafted and then up through the system, I think over the course of my career there, I kind of went through all the roles, as I mentioned in my first year and my second year. We just had really deep teams. So I kind of started off in fourth line, and then moved up to third line, and then up to second line and assistant captain, started getting some power play time. And then my last 2 years as the first line center, and then obviously getting named captain. It is a real honor, honestly. It is a storied franchise. I think I was 20th captain ever. It's not something that I took for granted. I had some good captains before me. I mentioned Ben Wright and Carter Banks, who I lived with for 2 years, both just great captains. I learned a lot from them. I like to think that I did my best to try to help the young guys, and I know it was kind of a lean time, and tried to lead by example and try to push through with Lethbridge. Obviously, going up to the trade deadline, it's a tough time in your life. I mean, at that point, having an agent in your head, kind of thinking that if I go on a deep playoff run, that I could get an NHL deal. That's kind of what he thought. So, I mean, at that point, I kind of thought that was probably the best play. And I'm not going to regret my time in Moose Jaw. I loved it there. We did go on a pretty deep run. I met a lot of great people, had a great time. But it definitely would have been cool to have the all-time games played record. That's definitely something that would have been a nice feather in my cap for sure. But it's all hindsight 2020. I enjoyed my time in Lethbridge so much. There's just so many memories, so many good times, so many good people that I was blessed to play with and just deal with on a daily basis in the front office, the radio staff, and my billets. So no, I honestly, I really don't have any regrets about my time in Lethbridge.
You came 16 games shy of tying Mitch Peacock. It's so close. Of course, you would end up playing 350 games in the WHL, spending the last half with the Moose Jaw Warriors. Talk about that year. I mean, you talked about the trade and the difficulties and kind of the emotions that lead into it. You get traded to a pretty good team, and you guys go to the Eastern Conference Final. Talk about that run and how much fun you had with the Warriors and that run.
Yeah, it was great, honestly. Being with the team for 4.5 years, it's tough to switch dressing rooms. Obviously, I was a leader in Lethbridge and kind of one of the vocal guys in the room. So you get traded to Moose Jaw, and you're just kind of fitting in. But we had such a talented team there. Going into the playoffs, yeah, we essentially for us it was they traded for me and then James Henry another 20. So it was win or bust essentially, and obviously we didn't actually win the entire thing. We ran into a pretty hot team in Edmonton, and that's the way it goes. But the run there was awesome too. It felt very similar to my first year in Lethbridge. That was the first year in their new rink there, and the fans were very boisterous there as well. It was a great team. I mean, I think back some of the memories from there. Essentially, I got traded there in January, so at the deadline, and this was previous to when I was there. But whether it was home ice advantage or our team was that good, but I think it was in November, so before I got there, we didn't lose a home game until the first round of playoffs. So obviously, it was a great time. The city was like loved us, obviously, because we were doing so well there. But it was a fun place to play. Some of the memories from that, I mean, watching him now at Braden Point, he played as a 15-year-old for us. I think he had 2 overtime winners. It was pretty impressive to see. Morgan Riley came back. He had ACL surgery earlier in the year. He didn't join us to the third round of playoffs, hadn't played in 5 or 6 months, immediately steps back on the ice, and he was pretty much our best player. So, again, it's just you wish you could go further. Obviously, I think in most of the games we outshot Edmonton, but they had a very good team as well, and were deserving winners. And then they ended up going on to the Mem Cup as well. So, like I said, it would be cool to have that games played record. And again, it's hindsight 2020. I'm not going to take back anything from Moose Jaw. I met a lot of great people, good friends on the team, and had amazing builds when I went to Moose Jaw.
You would ultimately win championships. You would go on to the University of New Brunswick, and what a storied program that is. You spent 5 years there. You went to 4 University Cups, winning 3 times, taking advantage of the WHL scholarship program. Maybe talk about the scholarship program first and what that means to a player like you who got a degree and did 5 years of schooling because of your time in the Western League.
Yeah, it was great, honestly. Probably in my 20-year-old year, as most junior hockey players, you kind of think, well, I'm gonna be a pro hockey player. I'm gonna make the NHL, and then there kind of becomes a realization at your 20-year-old year. In the end of my 20-year-old year, going into my 21-year-old year, it was actually the lockout year. So jobs are pretty tight that year. I'd gone to NHL camps before, but in my 20-year-old year, having like 41 goals, I figured, oh, I'll at least get a camp somewhere. And then there was just nothing. So honestly, it's probably a good thing now that I ended up using my WHL scholarship. It was different, the process of actually selecting where you want to go. Obviously, in the Bantam draft, a team picks you, and that's where you go. But fielding calls from different universities and different selling points. I think for me, I'm just a competitor and I like to win. Like I said, the feeling my first year and then that run on Moose Jaw, it's just such a hunger to win everything. And obviously, the University of Brunswick has a very good reputation. So once I kind of narrowed that down, it's just the place that I decided that I wanted to go. But really, honestly, at the time, like I said, I didn't have any desire to go to school. I always thought I was going to be a pro hockey player. Like I hadn't been in high school for so long, so I was like, okay, I'll just do my 1 year and get out. So I went to UNB, had a pretty good first year. Kind of just took the bare minimum for courses, and then we won a championship. It's like, oh, fantastic. So now I ended up going to Arizona Coyotes development camp that summer. But then talking with people, I just felt it was really important to finish my university degree. So I kind of looked at things and I decided that I was going to fast track. So I was like, my goal is that I'm going to finish my university, my undergraduate in 3 years. So the next 2 years, I kind of buckled down, started taking like 7 classes a semester, some summer classes, and was able to finish my degree in the 3 years. And then one of the benefits of that was I got to do my internship, which was lucky enough to come back and work for the Hurricanes, which was awesome. It was great to come back to Lethbridge and see things from the business side, get to meet you and all the great people in the front office staff. So I finished my degree there, and then that summer I signed with the Texas Stars, a 2-way deal, which was great. I was like, oh, I got an American League contract. This is fantastic. So went to their camp, but played one exhibition game there, played well. And then essentially they're like, hey, like, you're a smart guy, but you kind of understand the number situation. So then I went down to Idaho in the East Coast, and I think I kind of smartened up and looked, and I'm like, wow, there's like 3 or 4 guys on NHL deals down in the East Coast League. Like, I'm going to need probably like 8 injuries on forward in order to get called up. So after kind of looking things over and talking, because I hadn't played any regular season game, just exhibition, I still had eligibility with my WHL scholarship. So I still had 2 more years of schooling. So I started talking to UNB again. I was like, hey, like, is there any way I can come back, get into a master's program? So we looked into it, and yeah, I was able to leave that contract. I came back to school late. So I didn't have I still had my eligibility and my scholarship. I just had to redshirt until Christmas, just so I wasn't registered for dates at the time. So I came back and started on my master's, and then fortunately enough for me, I was able to win 2 national championships in the 2 years I went back. I was able to get my master's, and then one of the biggest goals, I guess, out of playing pro hockey is that I was able to sign an ATO with Stockton Heat and played an American League game. So for me at the time, playing an American League game was like playing an NHL game for me. So that was something that was kind of a feather in my cap, and I was happy to accomplish. So I think it was a right decision to come back, win 2 more championships, get my master's, and play in the American League. So I'm very happy that I was able to go back and use my scholarship. But honestly, I know I'm probably ranting on a little bit here, but I look back now that I'm done with it, and the amount of money you save. I look at so many other people that have student loans, and the benefit of playing a university sport and getting that paid for. It's incredible. I don't think players at the time, or even junior hockey players in the WHL, realize what an advantage that is. So looking back now, it's incredible. It's really set me up for life, not having to worry about student loans and getting an education paid for.
Only a couple more with you, Cam. I want to talk about post UNB, because you did ultimately get to play some pro hockey the last few years over in Europe. What was it like playing hockey in Europe, and what that did to you as a person? Because I've talked to professional players that have played overseas, and it's such a different atmosphere and a different lifestyle. How did you enjoy it? What was it like for you playing overseas and in England?
Yeah, no, it was incredible. So I was over there for 3 years. So I played in 4 different countries. So I was in Switzerland, Czech Republic, Denmark, and England. My first year in Switzerland, I mean, it was incredible. That country is so beautiful. It was a culture shock for sure. On the team I was on, there's only 2 imports. So some other WHL fans listening, they might know the name Jaden Deschano, who played for Kootenay. So it was just me and him. We're the only two imports. The main language over there was Swiss German. So guys did on the team speak English, but the main chatter in the dressing room was Swiss German. So obviously we relied on each other a lot, but it was amazing. I think I played hockey for so long that one of my goals was to go over to Europe and experience that lifestyle and play professional hockey. In my 3 years over there, I think I traveled to like 18 countries. The fans over there, it's so different. Like I remember most of the rinks there, it's no seats, they're standing, they're chanting the entire game. Like we're going off to games, they're setting off flares and stuff like that. It's a really cool experience, not only just the hockey, but just living in a different country, seeing different things. It really helps you kind of mature and kind of get a different perspective on the world. So I think for me, it was something I always wanted to do, and I was really happy with the 3 years that I was over there, and I accomplished pretty well everything I wanted to do. So for a lot of players out there, it's definitely something I would highly recommend, whether it's for 1 year or it could be longer. But just playing in Europe is just such a different culture and lifestyle than what you live in North America on a daily basis. So it's something that I'm really proud that I did and was happy about that decision.
You did play last year. What's the plan for Cam Braze moving forward now in 2020 and beyond?
Yeah, that's a great question. So officially, I'm going to be hanging up the skates. It's been a long ride playing hockey, I guess, since I've been 5 years old. So I'm 29 now. So just short of 25 years. I look at all the places that it's taken me. Like I said, just from out west, played in the WHL for 5 years, got my schooling paid for, played university. Got 2 degrees, then was over in Europe for 3 years. So hockey's taken me a lot of places and definitely shaped who I am as a person. What's going forward for me? It's a great question. I have started looking into policing. That's an area that's always been an interest. My father was an RCMP officer. Not necessarily that I'm looking into RCMP, but city policing, I think. So that's an area that I'm looking at going forward. I do have 2 degrees, so I could potentially use those in my field. Right now, I'm kind of an open book. We're kind of just, obviously, as I mentioned earlier in the interview, with COVID, there's a lot of kind of unknowns on what the future holds for certain aspects. But yeah, I think at 29, it's kind of, hockey's been good to me, but I think I need to kind of move on with the real world and get into a real job, and that'll definitely be a culture shock for me.
Well, whatever it is, Cam, I know you're going to be successful, and we really appreciate you taking the time to reminisce and catch up, and hopefully you and yours stay safe and healthy, and we'll do this again soon.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks for having me, Forby.
All right, there is Cam Braze, the 20th captain in Hurricanes franchise history, on another edition of Saturday Sit Down. We hope you enjoyed it.